Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, so we have another Khyber Shards answer, and we have Casey with us. Hooray!
Hello.
So I have a question before we get to listener questions. I was surprised at how right along with it Shade was in the notion of leaving the treehouse and moving to the floating island. Why is Shade cool with that? I assumed that if anyone was going to have an objection, it would be Shade to leaving behind the foresty comfort of the treehouse and moving farther into the city.
Her logic in being okay with it is solely, that's the word, rooted in security. This is way harder to get to. It has become very clear that everybody knows where we live. So that is not offering the level of protection that it once was. The idea of a floating island, very few ways to access it, is very appealing to her. It makes her feel she has the high ground. It's strategically advantageous.
Cool.
And there is a not forest, but there are the trees on the island to provide that aspect.
That's true. Yeah. Cool. Well, I was curious. It was interesting to me that there was no, I mean, I realized kind of as players we had agreed to go this direction, but I was surprised that all the characters were also just right on with it. So it wasn't an unpleasant surprise, but surprising nonetheless. Well, we do have some listener questions. If you would like to submit questions, you can find a link to our Discord down in the description here, and you can also submit them in comments on our videos. But first set of questions come from Mia. Mia says, I've noticed a change in Shade's demeanor, which I adore, where she's being more outspoken in a positive way in her interactions, both with other player characters and with non-player characters. I'm wondering, what is the motivation behind this change?
Awesome. That a thing I was trying to do came across. So thank you, Mia. Two things primarily drove this, or are driving this shift in Shade. And the first one is definitely the Moonspear's definition of family. That definition of, and I don't exactly remember what they said, but essentially a family are people willing to fight for each other. Mm-hmm. That definition leaves no room for questioning Pog and Ezri and Ari's relationship to Shade. They have over and over again been willing to fight for her, with her defending. And so that has definitely alleviated some of her fears of, not fully, but fears of abandonment. Oh, that's what family is. Because Shade has she's not had a family ever. And no one has really set her down to go over what family is. She is only deduced based on what she sees, which is not that you're willing to fight beside each other. And so just the comfort in not having to appease everybody so that they don't leave. I can gauge their level of commitment by, are they still willing to fight? Cool, we're still good. That is a measurable unit that she can feel comfortable with. And then particularly in Shade's willingness to be more outspoken with the PCs was that scene after the Red Ring. Like, Shade is all about survival and people discussing the possibility of selling and or killing her openly in front of her. was fairly unsettling. And then Kyrus's definition or explanation of why she got to do that, just that level of power. Shade wants to be present. She wants to be intimidating. She wants someone to miss her if she's gone. She doesn't want to be able to be killed in her sleep and nobody notice.
Cool.
So fear and comfort.
Okay, that's cool. Interesting. Then Mia asks, what does Shade think her role would be in the new school?
I have thought about this one, and I think it would be hilarious to play it out. But I think she is definitely the overzealous camp counselor that's teaching you survival skills in the woods.
Aberrant Boy Scouts.
Yes, 100%. They're practicing like how to hunt prey, how to, get the quickest kill. What do you do with your food once you kill it? What are the best, easiest, methods of preparation? And you don't want to get noticed. So how can you build fires with less smoke? And not in an empathetic way. I definitely see her being like, that was a terrible shot. Do better.
Oh, I love that. That sounds really fun. I'm going to have to do something with that. That's too good.
I think it would be so much fun. I think she would have a great time at it. And those poor kids would learn survival skills and also fear Shade.
Which would be perfectly within Shade's desires.
100%. Her best life. Those kids now know how to survive and not trust their authorities. This is great.
Exactly. Oh man, and I mean, obviously, with me knowing how you are as a teacher, that's deeply hilarious to me, because you are so empathetic with the students, and it's just that's really funny. I like that idea. Gonna do something with that. And then Mia has been asking this question to all the players. So who does Casey think Shade's X-Men counterpart is, and who would Shade think her X-Men counterpart is, if Shade could read X-Men comics?
The first question was fairly easy for me because it came up while I was planning for and preparing for this campaign. And Shade is definitely rooted a little bit in Wolfsbane. The ability to shift, the fierce loyalty, the traumatic childhood, very, very much Rain Sinclair. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as who Shade thinks she would be, viewers, I'm going to absolutely tell the truth here. I had to brainstorm a little bit with Philip on this one. My knowledge of X-Men characters is not much past the movies. But I think that she would consider herself more of a Nightcrawler character, that she is an outsider. She's on the outskirts of the main stories or the focus. She gets in and out of places easily, is noticed when she wants to be, but can hide when she doesn't want to be seen.
Cool.
I think I'm happy with that answer.
I think it makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Then Laura had a question. Has Shade gone to any of the Unity dinners that Ari has organized? This came up very early in the campaign. Ari, as a Koravar, has been organizing these weekly, when he's able to, which is probably not recently, but has been organizing these weekly dinners with Koravar families in Stormreach. And he had mentioned in maybe one of the first few episodes that Ari would have invited the other characters. And so I guess Laura wants to know, did Shade ever take Ari up on that?
I actually thought about my response as soon as he offered that, like just trying to think through how would Shade interact with the other player characters in their day-to-day life. What would that look like? And I think Shade definitely attends the first one that she was invited to. This is how it's a thing that Ari likes. It's important to him. He has invited. You go to things your friends invite you to. And it was absolutely, if I get to speak for Eric for a second, and he can correct me if he disagrees, but it's definitely his event. He is the entertainer. He's the people person. He's the social butterfly. He's visiting with everybody. And he's the only person Shade knows or cares to know. So she, I imagine, just sat by herself with an empty chair next to her most of the time, didn't know what to do. And so she did not go back.
That tracks. Yeah. I can imagine Shade dealing with strangers coming up and trying to be engaging and friendly and upbeat with her. Not always going ideally. Certainly not being her comfort zone.
No, they're definitely single syllable responses. No. Okay. Bye.
Well, and that first one would you even be before Cal enters the picture? So there wouldn't even be, because I always picture Cal as being like this social buffer, because
100% her security blanket.
Like, yeah. And the people come up to Shade to pet Cal, not to, engage Shade, and it's a shield.
Also, easily agreeable topic. Shade can spend as much time as anybody wants to about what a gorgeous cat this is. That's fine. And she can back away if she needs more personal space from the person, because nobody's going to come through a Fey Panther towards her.
That's also very true.
So, yes. Cal is great.
Very good. Cal is great. I agree. And then Darren asks, is Shade like or unlike the characters you typically play? Does she have specific qualities that you gravitate towards playing? And what about her character is new territory for you to explore as a player?
Well, Darren, I'm going to be honest. I have overthought this question significantly. So it is a great question, and I think I've settled on a couple of similarities and differences. But I definitely was talking through this one with RA and asking him about feedback on my characters. And I would have initially said that she's impulsive. I very much tend to play impulsive characters. They're socially impulsive in what they say or don't say. But in reality, I don't think Shade is super impulsive. She's not good socially, but she's a fairly cautious character. And so I had to rethink my answers. Now, why I'm explaining to you what was going to be my answer is wrong. I'm so sorry.
It was Strider dropped his bone in the hallway.
Got it. I think the way that she is similar is I tend to play very naive characters. They are often naive and endearing. That sounds super vain to say, but I do tend towards endearing characters. I think I mentioned in a previous KSA that I personally don't love conflict, and so my characters don't tend towards conflict. And Shade is definitely shaping up to be more endearing than I had initially envisioned her. In my head, she was much more prickly, but now she's just like as a porcupine stuffed animal. Like there's not really any threat there. As far as the difference, I think the biggest difference in her is her traumatic background. I was thinking through my characters, and most of my characters come from loving homes with loving siblings. They are setting off on an adventure because I tend towards wanderlust type characters. They want to seek adventure and travel around. And so that's probably the biggest difference is Shade had a really just tragedy after tragedy when it comes to her background and being abandoned and being imprisoned. And usually my characters are just very happy-go-lucky, safe home. Parents want nothing but the best.
Well, that just means you're not falling. You don't usually fall into the D&D stereotype of the arch villain murdered my family in front of my eyes, and I will have my revenge. Right.
Right.
Well, and I more or less told you all that the manifesting of a mark would be traumatic. So you were following some guidance in getting the extra trauma in there.
We really all did. We really all have super dark, hard lives.
That's true. Everyone really took this was traumatic to heart.
We take directions well.
You do. Yeah. I have been enjoying watching you figure out Shade. That's why I really enjoy watching the players figure out their characters. And I don't know. I mean, you've mentioned before that you thought Shade was wildly different from who you said, and I agree. She's a lot less prickly than you described her at first. But I think you have still hit on a certain degree of ruthless, because that was one of the other words I remember you using when we talked about the characters. She was, and I think that has, especially as she's gotten more interested in power, I think that's coming back out, is that we're seeing a little more of a ruthless side of Shade.
I totally agree. Now that you say that was one of the things that I had brainstormed. I should take notes when I think of these questions beforehand. I tend towards characters that are on very good alignment. Mm-hmm. And Shade is much more neutral from any other character. Her willingness to kill and her proposal that that's a viable option or solution to the problem is very different from my previous characters who tend to avoid that.
One of what I thought was a really funny moment, but also kind of hits on that notion in the most recent episode, is when Ari asks, "Why is he still tied up?" And you and Colin both answered at the same time, and Colin as Pog said, "We had to let him down," and Shade said, "Because he's a bad person."
Was a good solution.
Yeah. Right. Bad person. Time up. Awesome. Well, thank you. That is all of our questions for this week. Thank you very much, Casey, for your insights into Shade. I'm
of course
super excited for everyone to see Monday's episode, because we recorded them just last night and I tried something different. And I think both entertained and tortured the players by doing it.
It was so good and difficult. Being an audience member is fun. You tell a good story.
Well, good. Hopefully our audience will agree. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this, or want to support our show, you can do so by pushing any of the buttons down here below our faces and by leaving us comments and telling your friends. You can find links to all of our social media, including the Discord I mentioned before, down in the description. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday, and new Khyber Shards answers every Friday. This has been Khyber Shards, and thanks for rolling with us.